It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I am your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the program. And with me in the KFG studios, my business partners and fellow CFPs, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
That's right. Hey, if you're a teacher or a government worker, you have some unusual decisions to make as you prepare for your retirement. But the rest of us can also benefit from thinking through the factors that impact a teacher or government worker's retirement as well. We're going to cover that and more on today's episode.
That's right. If you're a teacher or work in a government role, then you've got some unique issues with your retirement planning that you've got to be aware of. We're going to help you with that right now. If you have a question for the program, we'd love to hear from you. We're going to kick this off with a question. You can reach out to us. You can call or text us, 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Online, wisemoneyshow.com is where you can find us. Leave questions there as well. And then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. All right, so the topic today, coming from a question from fan of the show, Susan. Here's what she said. Been a teacher in the community for the past several decades. Why do I want to say thank you for your service?
Exactly.
Right? Because that feels, that's a sacrifice. So been a teacher in the community for the past several decades, but about to head into the classroom for my last year before I plan to retire. Is there anything specific to teachers' retirement that I need to plan for? Yes, there is. And it's not just to teachers like Josh shared. I mean, this could apply to several different roles, also government workers as well. We're going to get into some of those unique things. But I would say there's three unique components of your retirement that you need to pay special attention to. Before the show, Kevin, you were talking about just normally if you're in that line of work, if you're a teacher, you are passionate about kids and you're unbelievable at what you do. And you might not want to or choose to focus on finances.
Yeah, it might not be interesting to you at all. You have a calling, and that's what you've done. I mean, I've met with teachers and said, well, let's talk about your pension, and they said, what's that?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, well, you have a pension that you're going to get. You know, when you retire from the school, it's like you don't retire. Like they're going to keep paying you until you die.
You know what's funny? So one of our all-star team members, Josh Fritzke, actually just had that same scenario. They was working with someone on getting them enrolled into a retirement plan, and they had some questions about an old retirement plan, and he said, I think you've got a pension here. And they said, well, what's that? And so he said, we're going to do this right now. He rolled up his sleeves. They called, and she had a pension and was eligible for it. Now, because she'd only worked for a decade or so, it wasn't a ton of money, but she was in tears.
Yeah. It's the coffee fund then.
Yeah.
You know, I have often wondered how many gallons or bathtubs full of coffee does a teacher consume in a typical school year, but it's got to continue, right? So how do you make sure that the right income is flowing even when you're done with the school system, done with all those kids, ready to enjoy either? Some people go into an encore career as a teacher, a former teacher. A lot of them become financial advisors. Doesn't it seem like we've attracted a lot of teachers to our team even? It's fun.
It is, yes.
All of our financial advisors at least have the heart of a teacher, and I love that. But
financial advisors will give teachers a run for the money with the coffee consumption as well. So,
but
I challenge any one of you to do a duel.
I know. Well, I would go toe for toe.
Yeah, you would beat me.
But here's the thing: it's kind of gross to think about drinking coffee out of a bathtub. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, not interested.
Not a great analogy there, but okay. So here we go. So
back of your mouth.
There are three unique components to a teacher or government worker's retirement, and we're going to get into those. But what are the common things as well? Because these are maybe unique to teachers and government employees, but these uniquenesses find themselves within the 5 common factors that we all need to consider. These are all choices that we all make. that determine whether we're on track for a confident retirement or not. So, Josh, can you share those 5 factors?
Yeah, the first one is the decision you have to make is what age are you going to retire? And this one is unique to a lot of teachers because mostly teachers are some of the youngest retirees that we talk to because of this pension, because of the way that retirement is structured for them. A lot of times they can be done with their at least first career before most people are. But the younger that you retire, the more you need to have prepared or planned for retirement because your nest egg, your resources are going to have to just stretch longer, right? But the other flip side to that is also just life expectancy.
Yep.
So the age you start retirement, the age that retirement ends, that's the measure of how long your resources have to be able to last. And we use statistical measures when we're helping clients to prepare for retirement. Nobody knows how long they're going to last, right? No one knows when their last day is, thankfully. But we say, hey, at age 92 and 94, we want to make sure that your retirement assets will stretch that far because that's statistically the age that 20% of your peers will still be alive.
Yep.
And so, again, the younger you start retirement, if your end date is defined or assumed, it's unknown though, you have to measure the length by when it starts.
So of the 5 factors that apply to all of us when you're planning for retirement, the first is age. Second is spending, how much you could plan on spending in retirement. This is often what are your base expenses today? What's your lifestyle? And I heard a statistic, and figures lie, liars figure, but 97% of people are unable to have that same standard of living that they had during their career. They're unable to have that in retirement. Only 3% can keep that standard of living. No, we want to work with the 3%. We want to make that 3% 30% or even higher. And so base spending, but then also adding in new expenses in retirement, like health insurance. We're going to get to that, or maybe bigger vacation expenses, but then wrapping all of that in with an inflation assumption as well. So that's the second factor, spending. Third is retirement income sources.
That's
and
right.
One of the unique things to teachers and government workers will be embedded in here. That's the pension we're talking about. But third is, what are your income sources in retirement? Fourth, fifth, or go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, again, the income, the more income that someone has that they can count on in retirement, guaranteed income, steady income, known amount of income, it drives down the amount that they have to have accumulated in retirement accounts or additional nest eggs and whatnot. And this is one of the great strengths of a lot of retirees that come out of the school system, out of government roles. You not only have Social Security quite often, but you also have a pension. And we'll unpack more of that here soon. But just the simple fact that you have multiple streams of income in retirement strengthens your retirement outlook.
Yeah.
Right. But then on top of that, you do have the ability and you have the need really to keep on accumulating money outside of that pension or in addition to that pension. And so the amount that you save for retirement is another one of the factors. And often this is what some people early in their career are trying to solve for. How much do I need to be saving for in order to retire at such and such an age with this amount of lifestyle or spending, that kind of thing. The other part of the savings or the nest egg calculation, though, is what kind of rate of return can you get? Mm-hmm. How much risk are you taking with those investments? What kind of growth can accumulate? Getting your money working hard for you and helping to build is a key part of your retirement outlook.
So those are the 5 factors that apply to your retirement, whether you're a teacher or not. And again, we're going to speak directly to you in just a moment here, but those are the 5 factors. And whether you view them this way or not, those are decisions. You, especially within spending, you might say, no, I spend what I spend. Yeah, I mean, the cell phone bill is this much, and coffee is this much. Well, those are choices. You might look at the income side and say, I don't have any control over my Social Security. Yeah, but you have influence on when you draw it, and that influences how much, and so on. So these are all choices, but then they're interdependent. They're related. So you can't just choose, well, I want to retire really early, and I want to spend a lot, and I don't want to have any retirement income. I don't want to save that much, and I don't want to take any risk. You would look at how those are interrelated and say, hey, that math doesn't work. That's not a confident retirement. You've got to look at your choices, then working with the CFP to do the analysis to say, okay, your concoction of choices there, are you on track for a confident retirement? And if you're not, or if you were at one time and situations change, what are the trade-offs? What are the adjustments? Your CFP loves that line of work. They love helping you with that and helping you find a path towards retirement that works for you. Now, within those, what are the uniquenesses to teachers? We've got that and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Survey says uniquenesses. Is it? Is it?
Is it a word?
Yeah. Not sure.
I think you can go with it.
All right. Hey, YouTube, thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show that airs right here on this channel, 10 a.m. Eastern Time every Saturday morning, where we make up words and do bad math on the radio just off the top of my head. And also on podcast as well at the same time, but then also on a couple local radio stations, which is why the content's broken up the way that it is. It's a talk show. But if you are looking for more palatable concepts, videos or concepts that apply that are shorter, maybe 10, 12 minutes long, taking one financial concept, applying it directly to your situation, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we have all that here as well. Well over 1,000 videos dropping new content every single day of the week, of the work week. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. And if you like the content, share it as well. Appreciate it.
I started typing into the Google, what is the plural of uniques?
Yeah?
And I got my answer.
A gaggle. No, I'm just
Well,
kidding.
uniques is already plural, right?
Uniques.
As opposed to unique. I don't know, though.
All right. Well,
So the state of the American worker, there's about a $4 trillion shortfall, and I think it's good to talk about this in terms of trillions because those are numbers that no one can comprehend.
Yeah.
So you just say 4 trillion, but I mean this is something that we want to solve for, and it's part of our just cause.
yeah. Noble cause.
Yes,
Yes. All right. So let's get into the uniquenesses.
it's just noble.
Uniques. It's, dude, I think I'm right.
I think you might be right.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Leave comments.
Okay, so
We
Be
need an
nice.
English teacher in here.
Be kind.
so
We're going to talk about pension. That's the first one that is unique to teachers, but then government workers, one of the biggest decisions you're going to make in your life. Let's talk about what it is. How do you calculate it? What are some key points to consider? Explaining the difference between an annuity savings account or a contribution plan and a pension plan. So there's just so much to hit. I put in here a possible topic is the most common teacher retirement myth. We've heard it, and growing up, and so we'll talk about that on the show. If you're a teacher or you have been in the past or maybe worked in a government role, you have some unique components to your retirement that you have to make wise decisions on. What are they? And how can you do so? We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Wherever you listen, just search the Wise Money Show. Subscribe to it there. Follow us there. Rate the program there as well. We appreciate it. Okay, we just shared the 5 factors to your retirement. If you're new to the Wise Money Show, we are passionate about this. That's the approach that you need to take to see, are you doing what you need to do to be on track with retirement? Is your retirement going to be, do you have the right confidence ratio? But then if you're a teacher, which is the focus, going back to Susan's question today, she's going to start her last year in the classroom here in about a month. And as she's planning for retirement, is there anything specific to teachers that she needs to be aware of? And yes, teachers, government workers, and some of you that are maybe in a different vocation, you've got some of these uniquenesses as well. The first one is your pension. Teachers, most of them have a pension, and government workers as well. Some of you that maybe work at for just a for-profit company might have a pension as well. But this is one of the unique decisions that you have to make. There's a lot that goes into a pension. But guys, like ground up, Kevin, you started explaining it, but in the most basic terms, what's a pension?
So I would make a distinction between a defined benefit and a defined contribution. So when we're talking about a pension, it's a defined benefit plan, which means I'm likely going to take my years of service, I'm going to take my average earnings, and I'm going to take my age, and that will get me in the ballpark of what my defined benefit will be. So if I go to work at the school system and I work for a number of years, my dad went to work at State Farm, worked for a number of years, it's a formula that's calculated, and they say if you do this, your benefit will be X. And you think, okay, well, that's fairly simple. Well, if you're, and because we do a lot of work in Indiana, Michigan, let's just talk about Indiana. Because you're in Indiana, there's also a defined contribution component, which could, if you choose, you could take that out as a lump sum, or that could be used to increase your monthly benefit amount.
And that's the key right there. When you talk about a defined benefit, well, defined benefit, what does that mean? It means a future stream of income.
Yes.
It's almost like your paycheck keeps on rolling even after you're done working. Think it's very similar to Social Security, right? So it's a monthly deposit into your bank account like clockwork, often for the rest of your life, could even go beyond your lifetime, depending on how you structure the thing, right? So the simple fact that you have this defined benefit or this defined payout or defined income stream when you get to retirement is unique. Like most workers these days don't have a pension available to them. They were popular, a few decades ago. They've been declining in use because of the use of something like a 401k, which is where your employer is not saying, I'm promising you some future benefit. I'm instead promising to just throw a certain contribution into the account, and whatever it grows to, that's what you get. The big difference between defined benefit and defined contribution. I'm glad that you drew that distinction, Kevin.
And defined benefit, I mean, they have to be funded. So you're like Social Security, you see your FICA taxes being paid. What you don't see is your employer paying payroll taxes. But for this pension, institutions, or in this case, school systems, are putting money into this big bucket that then is what is used to pay out your benefit. But in a sense, and I'm saying this tongue in cheek, it doesn't really matter how much money is in that bucket, because through a calculation, your benefit or what your monthly income amount will be is going to be paid out for the rest of your life, or again, maybe multiple or longer than that, depending on how you choose it. Whether that bucket of money has grown in value, declined in value, or whatnot, that institution's on the hook for that. So here's an example. My mom was a teacher for her entire career, started at 22. She was in the same classroom for over 30 years, the same classroom, same elementary school, her entire career as well. I mean, just unbelievable lady, by the way, an unbelievable career. And when she retired, her years of service, so 30 some years, times her final average compensation or salary. Now you're going to need to know, well, how does your pension define that? Here in Indiana, I think it's the highest 5 years of salary in your career. In Michigan, I believe it's the highest 3 consecutive, and there are variations therein. So you need to know that. But it's years of service times final average compensation or average salary times some multiple, times some factor. And in Michigan, they actually had a really high one at one point, 1.5%. But they did all the math, and they said, this doesn't work. We've got to reduce it. Indiana, I believe, is 1.1%, and I'm not sure where yours is, but you'll want to know that. Those three things are the inputs. Multiply them together, and that determines, all right, what's your pension benefit?
Mm-hmm. And there's another factor that goes into this as well, and your age matters often. Mm-hmm. And that has more to do with, like, when are you eligible to begin your pension? Often in the state of Indiana, we'll talk about the rule of 85. And this is just how many years of service do you have plus your age. If it's greater than 85, then you can start your pension and get things rolling and so on. But knowing the rule book on your pension is really important, especially, in our neck of the woods here. It's not uncommon for a teacher to have a career in Indiana and then step across the state line and have a second career as a teacher again in Michigan. Mm-hmm. And you could actually have two pensions.
Yep.
You could have worked in industry and have worked for employers that have all had pensions along the way there as well. Knowing and understanding what are your options is really key. It adds some complexity to your retirement, but it's also an amazing blessing if you use it well.
And it gets even more interesting if you live close to a state line where you could spend your career in Indiana and then retire and go to work in Michigan, because depending on the pension or the opportunity, you could actually buy years of service.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So you could increase what your potential payout is.
So, if, for example, someone just going a little bit deeper in what Josh shared, that understanding, this is a geeky term, but the vesting schedule, how long do you need to work and at what age before you're eligible for your pension? We oftentimes see people where they come in and they've worked in the public school system or at a government covered job. Oh, I've worked there for 8 years and I'm ready to be done. And we look and it's like, you're not eligible for your pension unless you work for 10 years. Can you tough it out for another 2 or whatever? Otherwise, because it's not, well, I only worked 8 years, so I get 80% of what I would have gotten. No, you get nothing. It's zero unless you work 10 years, or some places it's 15 or 20. And in those instances, you might want to buy years of service if you can. Or I had an employee, I had a client who turned into a great friend. They often do, where I said, I will drive you to work. We will carpool. I will drive you to work. Because for him, I think the difference between what his pension would have been at 62 versus what it would have been at 65, it's almost double if he waited an extra 3 years, just due to how the hospital, in this case, was calculating it. And I said, I will drive you to work. Like that. So he ended up, this interesting story, I'll just keep going here. This individual ended up getting hit by a car on his way to work, from the parking garage into work. And for health reasons, of course, there's all sorts of issues there. For health reasons, needed to retire early. So guys, I'm sorry for the tangent there. I didn't intend to go there, but financial planning and working with the CFP so your financial life is always decisionable, actionable. Guys, we preach that stuff because it's real. It matters. Mm-hmm. So yes, his financial life did need to pivot. Yeah, he received some compensation for his pain and suffering, but due to inadequate or insurance coverages, it wasn't nearly as much as it should have been, and there were just other factors at play there that, yeah, they turned out okay, but very, very different financially than what they planned. Speaking of differences, within that pension, there's a few other things that you need to be aware of, calculations or concepts. So we're going to help with that. That and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
Dude, what's the greatest pension maximization story ever?
I can't say the name, but individual out in New Jersey, right? Yeah. Which I'm assuming they've changed that calculation. Individual needed to work 3 years. Right?
Well,
or was it?
No. It was I think it was the average of the highest 3 years, mm-hmm. And because they had done part-time work for many years, they had many years of service, but they worked for the township, and so They did some of the work as an employee of the township, and therefore they got their credit. But then his business also did work for the township, and the business got paid, not him as an employee. And we said, well, look, if you go to work for the township itself, and you have an actual salary for 3 years, his pension went from $20,000 a year to $60,000 a year.
It's unreal.
Just in a 3-year time.
Yeah, because all they needed
Because
was
of the average salary calculation.
So I don't know if you're a teacher and you're listening to this, if you can go from like teacher to superintendent for 5 years,
3 years or 5 years or whatever it is.
But that's still, and he's still alive. I mean, that was in 2005 when we went out to Washington, D.C. for the conference, and Mike and I drove up to New Jersey, and we were all sharing.
Then we drove back, and it was late. Josh and one of the other team members were sleeping, and
we woke them up.
No, we were really quiet.
We figured there's no reason for us to be the only miserable ones here.
Kevin, you and I, we've had some really late night or early morning drives.
Dude. Yeah.
The Virginia one, that was the worst.
Yes.
I couldn't stay awake for you.
Yeah,
I feel bad.
That was.
I've been waiting 23 years to talk to you about how noisy you are in a hotel room, by the way. So I'm glad you brought that up.
For those
Mike.
of you who are curious, some people that travel, everyone gets their own hotel room, and we've decided to spend money on people, not hotel rooms. So
So we get as many people into a hotel room as possible.
It's almost like the Volkswagen,
the circus,
the
clown car. That's
yeah.
right.
All right, I think we stay on pension. This is third segment.
Yes.
Right after that is 403B, and then healthcare.
So you were teeing up what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, because I got it. Yeah, there's a few points that you need to consider, but there's the big myth for teachers, and I think we hit that next. In fact, I'm going to say that right now. All right, here we go. If you're a teacher or government worker, or I'm just going to say, if you have a pension, a defined benefit income that will last your entire retirement, your entire life, there is one common myth, one common retirement trap that we have seen just tempt a lot of people. And we're going to help you with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode, as well as a lot of other content, is on the YouTube channel. Go check it out. Go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there. Well over 1,000 videos. Turn on notifications so you're aware every time we drop new content. And you can share it there as well. Whether you're a teacher, whether you have a pension, whether you're listening to this saying, gosh, I wish I had a pension or a pension covered job. Maybe that'll be later in my career. But if you know someone right now, you can share this material with them, because here's the deal. My mom already shared with you. She's an unbelievable teacher. And that was her entire career, over 30 years, 36 years, I think, something like that, as a teacher. My brother, so my parents had two kids, me and my brother. My brother is a teacher, now principal. His wife is a teacher, now counselor in the school system. And so tons of educators in the Bernard family. And so I'm very aware of this myth. And it is exactly that is just has spread like wildfire through school systems. And that is, well, once I reach a certain age, and what's that certain age? It's when you become vested with your pension. It no longer makes sense for me to work. Mm-hmm. It's almost like there's this myth, and I haven't heard it as much recently because of inflation and other factors and whatnot. But early in my career, even 10 years ago, this was so common, you couldn't even explain it to someone because they'd heard it for so long. It was so ingrained. It was, no. Once I'm eligible for my pension, I can't keep working. That
like it doesn't make sense, or I'm not allowed to. Even we've heard that one.
I'm losing money somehow.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. I've arrived now, so why would you keep going beyond this point?
Now, here's why it's a myth. Because you might say, well, no, I've already thought through all this, and I could either work and make, let's just say, $65,000, or I could not work and get $20,000. well, I'm just not going to work because I could still get 20 grand. Yeah, but we shared the calculation with you earlier. And the calculation is based on your years of service. So if you keep working, that formula improves. One of the factors improves, and your final average compensation. So assuming you keep working and there's even a small raise each year, that helps work in your favor towards that calculation. Now, I think this myth started from years and years and years and years ago, where some places did cap your years of service. I get that. And if that's the situation, then be aware of it. But that's also like long time ago, some companies said you could only, the maximum you could contribute to your 401k was 25% or it was 20%. Those rules don't exist anymore. It's an IRS limit. And I haven't seen a pension in well over a decade that caps your years of service. I haven't seen it. Mm-hmm. So teachers, educators, government workers, those of you that have a pension, know what your formula is. Do planning. Work with your CFP to see if I retire at this age, what would it be? But if I retire at X, at a different age, what would it be? If my income goes up to this, what would it be? But don't fall for the trap of, well, as soon as I can draw my pension, I got to retire. Because that's not the case.
Mm-hmm. Right. So because that goes back to financial planning, and this is a show about financial planning. You'd think it's a show about pensions, but it's a show about financial planning. So the question is, how do I make the decision about when I should retire? And that should be a process. And the deciding factor shouldn't be now I'm eligible for my pension, therefore I must retire. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you go back, as long as we're exploding myths on this show, I would explode the myth that now that I'm eligible for Social Security, I need to retire. Yeah. And there are all kinds of different things that people have. I would call them preconceived notions that they haven't spent a lot of time contemplating, how do I optimize my financial life and my financial situation? Because really, this gal's question was, what do I do in my last year? And whether it's your last year as a teacher or anything else that you're doing, your last year can be super, super powerful, especially if you work, there's a small Catholic school in town that a lot of folks, their last year, they to get encouraged to be done, they get a year of compensation. So if I worked until June, I got half a year, and then I got a full year in the form of a severance. So I made a year and a half worth of income in 1 year. Well, what should I do about that? So there's all kinds of different things to think about in your last year.
But isn't that kind of the point? Like, there's an awful lot of people listening right now who do not have a pension. They never have, maybe never will. And you could say, well, this doesn't really apply to me then. But the reality is the pension is just another tool in the toolbox to help someone retire, right? And yeah, we're saying that teachers and some government workers, they may have some extra tools in the toolbox, but if you use it wrong, it doesn't benefit you. If you don't understand how it works or you don't even really utilize it, it doesn't benefit you. And the point is, financial planning is about understanding the tools that are in your toolbox. And you're going to have similar decisions to make, just like these teachers and these government workers who have to decide, when am I going to retire? How do I draw? What do I do after I retire? What's my retirement even going to look like? Do I have a vision for it? Well, until you define that, until you define what you're trying to solve or what you're trying to achieve in your financial life, how you use the right tools is unknowable.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into the second unique issue for teachers or government workers, but I need to hit just a couple other things really quick, factors or points you need to consider if you do have a pension. Will the pension last for just your life, or is there a survivorship option? This is one of the biggest financial decisions you're going to make in your life, and you need to do the math and work with the CFP, who's your fiduciary, who's going to analyze it and not have skin in the game, just want to help you and help you determine whether it should be life only or joint and survivor with some percentage. Second, will your pension come with some sort of cost of living adjustment, an inflation component? Okay, will your pension keep up with inflation or not? That's an enormous factor and variable with your retirement, because your retirement's going to last a couple of decades. So will it keep pace with inflation or will it stay the same? And then lastly, what will you do to manage the taxes, the withholdings and whatnot on your pension? Will they let you withhold? Some of them, yeah, we'll let you withhold federal, but you can't withhold state. So will they withhold the right amount for federal? Do you need to make up your withholding somewhere else or do estimates? That's another factor and point you need to be aware of with pension.
And I would also add, you mentioned earlier about one of our advisors working with a client, and that client was surprised that they had a pension, that there was some money out there, and what should they do with that? And the next thing I know, we're talking about drinking coffee out of a bathtub. But
It's very confusing.
But you also be aware about 40% of the teachers out there are like railroad workers, in that you're going to get your teacher's pension, but you won't get Social Security because the system paid into your pension and not into Social Security on your behalf.
Yeah, so you need to be aware of that. And yeah. Okay.
So there are lots of things, and to Josh's point, this is just a component of your retirement plan. This is not your retirement plan. So definitely, do some homework.
That's an important thing to consider, because you might be, if let's say you do have a pension, you're a teacher, you work for the government or whatever, you may think, okay, I've got a pension and I've got Social Security. I'm just set, right? I just have to work a certain number of years. When I get to this trigger point and I'm eligible to start turning on the stream of income, then I'm just good. I've never met a client who has a large enough pension or large enough Social Security that they can just live out their days on just that. They have to have some sort of supplement above and beyond it. Mm-hmm. They need to be accumulating dollars in some sort of retirement vehicle that has a growth component to it. Because of what you just said, Mike, there's not enough inflation protection built into those guaranteed stream of incomes quite often. You have to build up an additional cushion or a supplement to make sure the math works for you.
So how do you do that? And that's the second unique thing to teachers. And you might say, well, that's kind of a stretch. This isn't unique because most companies and most employees have a 401k. But the 403b that you can save up into as a teacher, it's different, or as a government worker, it's different. There's different options. It operates a little bit differently, and that's one of the unique things. We're going to break that down and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. All right.
Did you ever have your mom as a teacher, or was she in a different school system?
No. Here's what would happen. She was elementary. She was third grade. And when I would pass her in the hallway, I would pretend she didn't exist. I'm just teasing. I think I probably ran up and gave her a hug. My brother, though, I remember she would say, oh, he would look the other way. He'd get so embarrassed. Yeah, no, I was only there for kindergarten and first. And then we moved, and I was in a different elementary school. So,
gotcha.
But everyone, oh my goodness, everyone in Kentwood seemed to have Mrs. Bernard. And loved her. And we couldn't go anywhere without someone coming up. Oh, that's an old student of mine. Look at how big they are. Well, you saw them when they were, 8. Right. I would hope they're bigger. So, yeah. All right. And I will just say this, and then we gotta hustle. But we understand the temptation to fall for that myth or to emotionally buy into that myth. It's a grind. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there is a lot of bureaucracy within teaching. We know that, and that. And it's, if you're passionate about it,
it's a very difficult job.
It is, and mm-hmm. so listen. If you are there can be a time when your mindset shifts to mm-hmm. counting down the time instead of really enjoying the time. Mm-hmm. And if you get there, then you probably are, as soon as I can get a pension, I'm out of here. Because I to not have to worry about this again, mm-hmm. I get that. I'm going to say you're going to have that in any job, though. So just be aware of these tools and how those decisions or even these emotions impact those tools.
Yeah. Yep. That's good.
All right, here we go.
So the fourth
segment.
Whoa.
So 403Bs for half the time, health insurance for half the time. We're going to hustle. Mm-hmm. There we go. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com or korhorn.com. You can find us there as well, Korhorn with a K. You can submit questions right there on the website. Learn more about the team and the firm and all that sort of stuff. So wisemoneyshow.com. Okay, we're answering a question today from Susan. She's about to start her last year in the classroom before she retires. What are the unique things to teachers that she needs to plan for with retirement? And these aren't just unique to teachers, but maybe government workers or maybe those of you that work for a for-profit industry as well. You've got some of these. But the second one, in addition to your pension, is your 403B. Now, here's why this is unique. 403B is similar to the 401k. It's essentially a 401k, but for nonprofit companies or organizations. But here's what's different. If you work for a for-profit and there's a 401k, there's one 401k. Mm-hmm. It's been taught to you. You know the match. You know your options. That's it. For teachers especially, your 403B, you might have 5 different 403Bs to choose from. You might have one that's an annuity, one that's a mutual fund, another that's a different mutual fund company. You might have a choice among 403Bs. And this choice often can cause people to show up later in their career as a teacher with multiple 403Bs that you can't touch because you're still working for that same school system. So you've got $5,000 over here and you've got $3,000 over there and you've got $40,000. There's a risk that you lose track of some dollars, either how they're invested, where they are. There's just added complexity there. And then the other thing is they might work differently. One of them might be really low risk and low growth. Others, you might have some choice to it. So that's one of the uniquenesses of teachers in retirement.
Well, I agree. And it's unique in the sense of you have more tools to choose from when it comes to the 403B. But again, even if you are not a teacher, know and understand what is your retirement plan that's available to you, because there's a certain amount of money that you need to be accumulating to supplement the pension or supplement your Social Security, whatever streams of income you can count on in retirement. They're probably not enough. And so building up this nest egg, a 403B is just kind of the teacher's version or the hospital's version, the church's version of a 401k. 401k is just a little more famous because more people have it. But functionally, they operate the same way. And it's a way for you to set money aside out of your paycheck into an investment vehicle. You get to control that investment vehicle, and your decisions will influence how much growth potential there is. And if you're in tinkering with it too much or choosing poor investment options within that plan, maybe you get to retirement and you're underfunded. You don't have as much accumulated as you need to. Same thing can happen if you're just not saving enough. Mm-hmm. You're not sacrificing enough out of each paycheck to go into that account. Even if you have amazing investments selected, if they're underfunded that way, you can get to retirement and not have enough. But the point here is financial planning, whether you're a teacher or a government worker, determining whether or not you're ready for retirement is a function of figuring out, well, how much is enough? Defining that dollar amount that you need to accumulate to supplement the Social Security and the pension.
Oftentimes with your 403B, you have the same choice of saving up pre-tax or Roth. You likely are not going to get a match. A lot of school systems that match or their contributions going into the pension fund as opposed to your 403B. If there is a match or there is a component of school contribution, it might even go into a different account called a 401A. Another complexity, you might have a 457B available that you can also save up to in addition to the 403B. So again, like Kevin said, if you're a teacher, you are passionate about that, you're passionate about serving and educating kids, and you might not really enjoy digging into the finances, but it's actually a little bit more complicated than it otherwise would be.
And with the 401A, you definitely want to understand how is that funded, how should that be invested, because if you've never done anything with it, it's likely it's in the default investment, which is not going to set the world on fire, which is fine if you're getting close to where you'll actually be able to use that money. But if you're not, you need to let that money grow for you, because if the money supply increased by 42% since COVID, everything else has too.
Yeah.
And so,
you were talking about all these different investment vehicles that teachers have available to them. I feel like one of the biggest misconceptions for a lot of teachers, at least early on in their career, at least in Indiana, I'll say this much, they receive a statement on a quarterly basis saying how much money has accumulated in this annuity account. And it comes from the organization, the part of their state government that's going to be paying out their pension, and they assume that is the pension.
Right.
But in reality, it's a separate pool of money. It's an annuity that they're going to have some choices to make when they get to retirement on this piece, but it is above and beyond the pension as well.
Yep.
And the pension is that future stream of income, whereas this annuity is a pool of money that they have some control over how it's invested. Not a lot of investment options there, but it's another bucket that their employer is throwing money into. And again, even with that annuity, even with the pension, it may not be enough. And so your own dollars that you are intentionally setting aside out of your paycheck may be needed to go into a 403B where you can invest it maybe for even more growth potential.
And then the third, the last unique thing that, Susan, you need to pay special attention to and plan for, or other teachers or government employees, and that is what your options are for health insurance in retirement. Now, that's universal. Everyone has to figure that out. But here's why it's unique to teachers. And there's a few different things that I got to get into here. But one is, for a long time, there used to be retiree medical for teachers. And you might still have that. Depending on when you started or your school system, there might be retiree medical. Okay. Second thing to consider is, even if there isn't the popularity or the commonality for teachers to retire before age 65. It's not universal. It's not everyone that has done it. All three of the kids, our kids, have had the same kindergarten teacher. All of them did. Well, before Carrington had her, who she's now 14, this teacher, very popular in the school, was saying, I might retire. Not only has she not retired, she stayed around long enough to have even Easton, who's 6, right? But it is common for teachers to retire before age 65 because of the pension, and 65 is when you become eligible for Medicare. So you've got it. It's even more important for you to know, well, what are my choices with health insurance? And then the final unique thing within this health insurance decision is another account. For a lot of school systems, when they chose to get rid of the retiree medical benefit, unions and all of that negotiated and said, well, listen, if you're getting rid of retiree medical, those resources that you were setting aside, where are those going to go? And oftentimes those dollars have been redirected into a VEBA or a health reimbursement account, another account like a 403B that you're getting a statement on, money's getting saved up for, that you can then use in retirement to pay for health insurance, to pay for medical expenses, and you need to be planning for and aware of that.
Yeah, there is a lot to it. That's for sure.
Yeah. The VEBA, yeah, and these, so you're getting a statement on your VEBA, you're getting a statement on your 403B, you're getting a statement on your pension, which is actually just the annuity portion, savings account of your pension. Like reconciling it, putting it all together, it is complicated. Mm-hmm. But your action item is the same as those of you that don't have a pension, those of you that aren't teachers, and that is to work with a certified financial planner, a CFP. That isn't just a CFP, but they're also doing comprehensive financial planning, looking at all 6 areas of your financial life. I don't know how you make a great pension decision without looking at all 6 areas.
That's right.
I don't know how you can't make a good health insurance decision in retirement or have any awareness on that unless you're looking at all 6 areas. That's protection planning, okay? But looking at all 6 areas and how these big decisions, when will you retire, how will you draw your pension, how much should you be funding into your 403B, should it be pre-tax or Roth? You've got to look at all 6 areas in order to make wise decisions or great decisions in each of those. So teachers, government employees, and anyone else, make sure you're working with your CFP. We're here to help. Obviously, you can reach out to us as well. So, all right, that's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Josh Gregory, Kevin Korhorn, all of us at Korhorn Financial Group, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Korhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.